Now, the National Communications Authority has closed down pro-NDC stations Radio Gold and Radio XYZ. Officials of the authority, in the company of armed policemen, Thursday stormed the premises of the two radio stations, claiming they had not renewed their licenses. The NCA has, in the last few minutes, been addressing a news conference, offering explanations for their actions. You will hear from the Director General of the NCA, Joe Anoche, shortly, and speak to my colleague, Kwesi Parker-Wilson, who visited the premises of Radio Gold. But officials of Radio XYZ say they were not given prior notice of the NCA's action, although they had written to the authority applying for the licenses. Erica Hianyo is Managing News Editor at Radio XYZ.
This afternoon, we were taking an event live from the NDC headquarters, and officials of the DNI, National Communications Authority, and some armed policemen, about 8 or 9 of them, including a lady, well armed, stormed the premises. Some of them stood or took positions behind our wall before that, the access to the main building. A few of them took positions within the forecourt of the reception. Others were positioned in the yard, and one of them followed the NCA officials, including some engineers. There was a lawyer among them who led the team. They asked for permission to see our director. I made myself available, and our chief operating officer, Benanti. And so when we met them, we asked why they had stormed our premises with such well-armed to the police officers. And they said they had brought a letter. It was very simple. They wouldn't say anything. They only wanted to serve us the letter so we could open and read the details. Now, the letter before me currently is headlined Expiration of FM Radio Frequency of Edition. Prior to this, we had made several applications, at least 2 or 3 applications to NCA that we want to renew our licenses based on the experience we had had with the surprise bills that some of us were owing 4 million, 10 million, 40 million, and so on. We have also sent to NCA 2 banket grants, which were rejected because they told us they would get back to us. And these banket grants were to cover the renewal of licenses. One was GT Bank, dated July 6, 2017. The latest one was December 2018, same GT Bank, and the amount was 11,156 cedis. This is what we sent to the NCA, that we are ready, we have made application, and we've made several follow-ups. They would tell them it's not there, the board is here to be, and so on. So as a business entity which has been in operation since, what we had was to continue operating with the hope that NCA will formally respond to our request. And then we go through the due processes when they raise the certificate for us to pay the renewal license. And so today we were just here and
so you heard the Managing News Editor of Radio XYZ, Erica Hianyo, there. Now, my colleague Kwesi Parker-Wilson just returned from Radio Gold. He joins me in the studio. Now, you've been speaking to officials and staff of the station. Right. What have they been telling you?
Now, let me be clear that the staff are not happy with what happened today. And also, I met some supporters of the NDC at the premises of Radio Gold. Right. And they tell me that they actually heard that the station was going to be shut down. So they came there to stop the NC officials and also the police officials from executing their mandate. But unfortunately, when they got there, they had already done what they were supposed to do, and then they had left. But I managed to speak to the programs manager of Radio Go. Now, he's very surprised that before today, there hasn't been any correspondence between managers of Radio Gold and NCA. And then the letter that was given to him was dated on the 8th of May, that was yesterday. And today, you come to the premises, you give them the letter.
Which letter was that?
A letter. The content of the letter talked about the fact that they were operating without license and that they will shut it down. So for him, he's saying that if you send me a letter on the 8th of May and you deliver the letter on the 9th of May, you don't have any right to shut down the station. We can listen to Richard Ejapon, who is the programs manager of Radio Gold.
They were here this afternoon around 2:30 p.m. and their instruction was that they have sent us a letter which they were directed to come and shut the station down.
And prior to the incident, were you having any correspondence with NCA?
What I know, we've been trying to get in touch with them to regularize anything outstanding, but they were not forthcoming. That's what I know internally.
I see. Does it come to you as a surprise?
Very, because they came here with fully armed police officers, and I don't think that if you want a station to comply by regulations, you need to come here with intimidating police personnel. I mean, I don't think that's necessary.
I see. And they say that you're operating without authorization. That is the statement they have issued. I don't know if you've received a copy of the statement.
I think I've seen it. I've seen it.
And is that what it is? Is that the case?
I thought this issue was being handled by GIBA, and there was an issue with the electronic tribunal. So that is where we are taking the matter from. And so we didn't believe that that is how it should end.
And the letter, please, I want to be clear. What date was on the letter?
It was written on the 8th of May, and they served us today, 2:30.
And you say proud to that there hasn't been any correspondence between you and NDC?
No.
All right, so that's manager of the station.
Manager for Radio Gold.
Did he tell you how much they owe? Because we are told by the NCC that they're defaulting. They've defaulted, which is one of the reasons why they decided to shut them down.
No. He was making reference to the fact that the content of the letter talked about them operating without license. So he was only focusing on the license. Then he said that, that issue came up somewhere last year, and then they are in court. So they're even surprised why a matter that is being determined by a court, the NCA would now move in to shut down their radio station.
All right. Now, we do know that this issue has prompted, a lot of the NDC bigwigs and personalities to visit the station. You've been speaking to some of them. What have they been saying?
So the MP for Ablekuma South constituency, that is Alfred Okovandopoy, was there this afternoon, and also Sylvester Mensah, former NHI boss. And of course, he used to be a presidential aspirant of the NDC. He contested the former President John Dramani Maham, but unsuccessful. Now, for him, he believes that there is no coincidence. The NDC were holding the press conference, then NCA walks into Radio Gold. At the time, Radio Gold was kind of
programmed live. So he thinks it was deliberate.
He thinks it was deliberate, and that, in fact, he's accusing government of actually instigating NCA to actually carry out those work. We can listen to him.
Clearly, that it cannot be a coincidence that our party elders, the National Executive Committee and the elders of the party, were having a press conference. And right at the time that the press conference was to be aired, all our radio stations were shut down. This is an interesting coincidence.
And I'm sure they're doing their work.
It's a very interesting coincidence. I think that Ghana has come very far. We have enjoyed some peace in this country. It is quite obvious that government is calling for civil disobedience. It is quite obvious that government is calling for some level of disorder in this country. I don't think that any government can thrive under such circumstances. This country needs peace to make progress. And if this is just the beginning of what to expect as we move into 2020, then I think that the NDC would have to brace itself up for it. We saw what happened at Ayawaso West Wuogon by-election, and if that had gone unattended to, one could imagine what the preparations towards 2020 would be. This is yet another manifestation of what is in store for politics in this country. It's unfortunate.
No, I'm quite curious.
This is not the Ghana. This is not the Ghana that we want to live in. This is not the Ghana we would want to be associated with. This is not the politics that anyone should be proud of.
No, but I'm curious because NCA has carried out
this
it
is simply
mandate.
not on.
Radio Gold, XYZ,
you are a journalist. You are a journalist.
License,
you are a journalist.
And you say that you don't want them to shut them down because of politically motivated
the coincidence is very interesting. I'm sure you are enjoying that interest.
You don't have the full facts. Maybe perhaps they have started their work months before today.
Let me say that Ghanaians are wide awake. Let me say that every single Ghanaian would put interpretation to what is happening.
And for
and
you,
the
it's politically
interesting
motivated.
and the interesting coincidence is what makes the whole thing a little absurd.
Well, the NCA has been justifying its decision to shut down the radio stations. Director General Joe Anoche has been addressing a news conference on this matter. I will bring you details on that presser shortly. Earlier, though, it issued a statement on its actions, and it reads, NCA shutting down unauthorized radio stations in compliance with ruling of Electronic Communications Tribunal. Radio stations operating without valid authorizations as determined by the 2017 FM broadcasting audit are being shut down with immediate effect as enforcement action in view of the decision of the Electronic Communications Tribunal. Following the FM spectrum audit in 2017, some stations were found to be in default and were fined by the authority. However, some of the stations in default were not satisfied and proceeded to the various courts, Electronic Communications Tribunal and the High Court, to appeal against the NCA's decision. This resulted in a decision by the ECT in 2018 which reviewed the status of expired FM radio broadcasting authorizations and which ruled, among others, that companies whose authorizations had expired reverted to the same position as a fresh applicant. While some stations shut down following this decision, others did not. To this end, and in line with Regulation 65(1) of the Electronic Communications Regulations 2011 LI 1991, which states that, quote, a person shall not use a radio frequency without authorization from the authority, quote, end quote. The National Communications Authority is enforcing the shutdown of FM radio stations who are operating without authorization. It should be noted that, as ruled by the ECT, submission of renewal application after expiry of authorization is not a valid application and therefore shall not be considered by the authority. While companies affected by this shutdown may submit fresh applications to the authority if they so wish, these applications shall go through the required procedure for new FM broadcasting authorization, and the outcome will be communicated to the applicants. The general public is also informed that entities are only authorized to use frequencies for a specific duration or period. Frequencies are national assets and not the properties of users, as they are not assigned to them. The authority takes this opportunity to encourage all license and authorization holders to ensure compliance with the various terms of their licenses and authorizations, as well as the relevant regulations. So my colleague Komladum just returned from that NCA news conference. He joins me in the studio with more. So what more explanations has the NCA boss been offering?
Well, Araba, he mentions that they had written to these stations since the tribunal made that decision in 2018. Right. And then some of the stations went ahead to default in paying these fines. And so as far as the NCA is concerned, these stations do not have authorization. And so they didn't have to write to them today to tell them that they are coming to shut down their facilities. So it says they're just enforcing the decision by the tribunal, the Electronic Communications Tribunal decision in 2018. And he's been speaking. Let's listen to him.
The decision to shut down the stations in Accra today. So, as I said earlier on, this is an ongoing process, and there are only 2 stations in Accra, right, in the category. There are only 2 stations, that's Radio Gold and XYZ. Tomorrow, I think we are in the other regions. So it could have been any station at all if you just happen to be in the category. Yeah. Number of stations that need to be affected, and I think it's best that we don't discuss that. But trust me, we are just going to ensure that the right thing is done. But I don't think it would be right for me to stand here and mention the names of the stations. They've all been written to. Every one of them have received a letter from us one way or the other. Some of them in 2017, some of them wrote back to us. So what's the expiration date for Radio Gold and XYZ. Radio Gold expiration, it was in 2000. And I believe XYZ was in 2016.
So that's NCA boss Joe Anoche there. Very quickly, Komla, did he give any assurance of whether the radio stations, these two radio stations, could negotiate their way out of this current conundrum they see themselves?
Well, but he mentions that for now, as it stands, these stations will have to necessarily reapply as fresh entities, and then the authority will look at the spectrum frequencies that they will award them. And he is unable to tell if they will get the same frequencies as they operate on now before the shutdown. He says, just like when your driver's license is expired and you're going to renew it, or you're going to acquire a new driver's license, you do not tell the authority you want this specific number. And he says, as it stands, these stations will have to necessarily reapply.
Until then, they remain shut.
Yes, he also mentioned about that some of the stations that were fined in 2017, their fines had been returned to them because they had not satisfied the full, let's say, the full fines. And so some of them had been paying in bits. But because of this clampdown, they have had to issue checks back to these radio stations. So they exercise that they are embarking on now will affect those stations who had begun even paying the fines to clear off these debts that they had owed the authority due to the fines and the breaches that they had.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. And that's my colleague Komla Adum just returning from that press conference held by the NCA. You're still watching Joy News Prime. We're taking